ready as well.
Well, welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Jack, and that means only one thing: the sweet sounds of the entrance music. The godfather of CBD, the man who birthed it from his loins. Nearly a decade ago, the one, the only, the notorious Vic Carucci joining us now. Notorious, how are you?
I am great. Happy New Year, and great to be with you guys always.
A Happy New Year to you as well, and obviously we're going to get to the main reason in a second, but a great season by the Bills, and kind of a heartbreaking way for it to end there, but a great season all the last with, what they're building there with Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. What did you think of the Bills' run into the playoffs and almost into the second round?
Yeah, and I think you said it best. It's the program that really counts, and again, we all can sort of view it that way. I think very similarly between the organizations. You're looking for the right people at the top that provide the faith that it's going in the right place, that it's trending in the right direction, and I think there is that overall feeling among the Bills fan base. Yes, very bitterly disappointed with how that game went down Saturday, but I think the saving grace is that Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane have put something sustainable in place, and they seem competent at what they do.
Boy, they certainly do, Vic. It's and not only that, and so much this year has been, and rightfully so, has been the talk of Lamar Jackson and how Baltimore did everything to build a team to get the most out of him. I think the same could be said in terms of what the Bills have done with Josh Allen in the opportunities they put him in. And you feel like if they get a deep threat who can be a challenge to spread the field deep, that's a situation where you could have a little bit of success extended here in the AFC East. What did they do that was so successful with Allen and winning close games and building that program, that culture that they have? Because it's something we're trying to do, our damnedest we're trying to do it here. So how were they able to do it this year with Allen?
Yeah, well, let's start with the culture thing, because I know we throw that word around, and it sounds sometimes like just a cliche, but it means something to Sean McDermott and to Brandon Beane in trying to fortify it and make it be what they want it to be. The way it comes together is, first of all, a core belief that Sean has, that you get the right people who, obviously, they better have talent to play football. Sean says that. We don't just look for good quality guys, but you want people who fit what you're trying to do and who can play. Maybe not in that order, but he also says that those who have the playing part down and may not be as far ahead on the character / chemistry, team chemistry side, he said you hope to address their strengths with other people's strengths, or address their weaknesses with other people's strengths, and vice versa. So I think that's one thing. The other is that when he tells these guys defend their dirt, and then distributes cups of dirt for them, literal, to visualize what he's talking about. It sounds corny, but it works. And then on the video boards throughout the facility, it started with playoff caliber in 2017, and for 2 years that was the message. Well, after they clinched the playoff spot with 2 games to spare in the regular season, that flipped to championship caliber, the expectation that you go up a notch. And clearing the team out of a lot of just individuals who wanted to pad stats and replace them with guys who buy this theme, 111. And again, all of what I'm saying may, to the outsider, sound like, well, it's kind of corny football speak or coach speak, but it really registers. I hear players repeat it and say it and believe it. So it's a combination of what your message is, how you sell it, but having players who buy it. And as far as Allen is concerned, still a very raw talent, I think, has some qualities that I think can make him. I believe it's going to go in the right direction with him, but you can't ignore a lot of what went wrong, including completing only 52% of his passes. That's below. It's trending to what he was out of Wyoming, a guy who just doesn't have great accuracy. Yep. Secondly, recklessness with the ball, the 2 fumbles, losing one that led to a killer field goal by the Texans, and then this whatever that thing was called. I guess you call it a lateral. It was a schoolyard, whatever the heck he was trying to do, pitch to his tight end, who had the presence of mind, by the way, to not only knock it out of bounds so it wouldn't get recovered by the Texans, but knocked it backwards because that would have been a penalty.
Yep.
And he had an intentional grounding, and he did. So there's and he didn't. He took some bad sacks.
Oh my
these
goodness.
these are the marks of a young guy who's still got to find his way.
Absolutely, but they got the most, and I think Bo made a good point. John Brown, you have him who's a speedster, but I think if they had a bigger complement to him on the outside, a guy like DK Metcalf, for example, would have been pretty good with the Buffalo Bills on that offense. But there was an offense with Brian Daboll, who's actually here today with the Browns, had a go-around with the Browns before as well. And, what about Brian Daboll, Vic, would make him, in your mind, a good head coaching candidate for a franchise that obviously needs to find that right guy so that they can have some continuity, stability, and success?
Yeah, Nathan, I think the pedigree, start with that. 11, I believe it is, of his 15 or so years in coaching spent, I think it's 15, might be 16 now, but spent with the New England Patriots and learning that system well. And again, I know people will go to but how many Belichick disciples end up having success? Well, Bill O'Brien's done a pretty decent job down in Houston, so there's one, and he's got a really good defensive coordinator. Maybe he wasn't a great head coach, but Romeo Crennel, Browns fans know about him, who, by the way, schemed the daylights out of that game. And yes, he was going against Brian Daboll, and Crennel was working with an undermanned defense and his best player, J.J. Watt, working with one arm in that game, and managed to do a lot in that game to be effective. But for Brian's sake, I credit his work with an offense these past 2 years that this season had exactly one first-round draft pick, and that's Josh Allen. All right, keep that in mind. As far as this offense got this year with a rebuild, 9 new starters, 4 new offensive linemen, asking that whole group to kind of come together, mesh, form chemistry, cohesiveness, and it takes every bit of probably a full year and then some to get that right. I thought they made progress. Again, I think the rough spots that Josh Allen has, he may do with. To your point of having a big, talented target, there's validity to that, but you know how I feel. It's always the quarterback that makes the receivers.
Yep.
And I think Josh definitely maximized what he got from John Brown, maximized Cole Beasley, and if they get him another guy, great. But it's also his development and growth that matters. One of the things he did accomplish, one of the big things he accomplished with Allen, was an appreciation of the shorter throws, the 3- and 4-yard throws that can turn into bigger plays with yak yardage. That's the kind of thing that he understands and can see, and I think could bring out the best in a Baker Mayfield. The fact that he also has been part of this Sean McDermott program and appreciates that and understands and learns from what other people do. He will show up for this. I mean, he's there now, but this interview, once he sits down with the Haslams, it's a very thick book that he has with him of philosophy, of ideas, of connection throughout the league. I think he can put together a strong staff. I think in so many ways, I know there might be bigger, quote, flashier names the Browns are considering, but I think this would be a very solid hire.
Vic, the one thing that we think is, and you just listen to our guys in the postseason interviews, and it was leadership. I don't know Brian, but one thing that we think really has to be apparent is there's got to be a guy who can stand in front of a room, and this is a room with a lot of personality and a lot of ego and command the room. Again, I don't know Brian at all. Does he have the personality to do that?
Yeah, Bo, I believe he does at the core, but I'm going to say that as someone who's not been in a meeting room and on the receiving end of that. So if I start telling you I know exactly how he interacts with players in that context, I'm talking through a part of my body that I won't mention on a family station like
That's
this.
Right, yeah.
But no, I believe that he is intuitive and aware of what of how to deal with players, and remember, remember, too, that I think this is a plus. The year he spent at Alabama with Nick Saban, but especially around college players, has absolutely upgraded or updated, I guess is the better word, his thinking in how you use RPOs, in how an offense in 2020 or 2019 needs to operate. And he did that with Josh Allen. I'm sure he'll have a great vision like that for Baker Mayfield. I think players definitely need to be led and need to believe in the person leading them, but I think the bigger thing is respecting or seeing reason for credibility in the man putting together the plan, right? If they don't feel the consistency is there and the ideas are putting them in the best position, you can give all the great speeches and command the room and be a great orator all you want. It will fall on deaf ears when these professionals, when these guys who are paid millions to do a job feel that the person who's in charge or designing the offense or designing the whole system in which they operate on both sides of the ball, that if that has those flaws and looks amateurish, the respect will not be there.
I think you make a very good point about that, and I think that's, when you hear what the players talk about, leadership, consistency, putting them in the best position, those are the things that resonate with them. And you have to think a guy that spent a lot of time on a Bill Belichick staff, a lot of time on 1 year on a Nick Saban staff as well, that he's a guy who's probably going to understand that. And from everything you hear about Sean McDermott gets that as well. And so you look at his resume basically from 2013 to the present, Patriots, Alabama, and then the McDermott Bills for the last 2 seasons. So, you'd say he probably has a pretty decent handle on those things.
Yeah, and I think, too, to Bo's point earlier about how the program's been put together here and what he's learned from, one of the key components, and I know other teams do this, I'm not positive what Freddie did in Cleveland in this count if he did, but a leadership council was assembled by Sean McDermott, and he has pointed to that time and again as a vital component, meaning there are select players who have a say, who have input on what you're trying to do. They could be a decision like, okay, you get 14 padded practices during a season, saving some of the key ones later in the year. You don't have to use them all, but in the case of the Bills, for instance, just prior to playing New England in the late season game, and then prior to facing the Jets, when he made a decision to use starters in a meaningless game, at least temporarily, some starters, that was discussed with the leadership council, and they appreciated having input and gave their thoughts on what it meant. He voiced his reasons why he wanted the padded practices. We've got to get sharp for the postseason or stay sharp, and why we've got to put starters on the field to face the Jets in a meaningless season finale. Again, sharpness. Don't want to go 2 weeks and quoting some stats that said that when you do that, you tend to have people who lose in those wild card games when teams sit those players. So I know I'm talking about Sean McDermott, but I know Brian Daboll is very knowledgeable of that and aware of that, and I think can bring those components with him. What he learned from Belichick, what he learned from Saban, what he learned from McDermott, what he's learned from other people he's been around to the Cleveland Browns or whoever would hire him as a head coach.
Vic, I know you don't cover the Patriots, but obviously you see him a couple of times a year and have pretty good familiarity with Josh McDaniels in terms of what he's done offensively in New England. And it does appear that if there were a favorite in this thing, that he would probably be the favorite, and will interview at some point. Just from your vantage point and respect so much what you know about the league, what do you think about McDaniels getting his second run? Is the timing right for him now?
That's such an interesting question because I don't know. It's what took place in Indianapolis. It's just hard to let go of that for me. Impossible, frankly. Going beyond the altar. I mean, you're in the honeymoon suite, I think, and maybe even beyond that, and then you walk away. So that's a hard. He'll have a lot of splaining to do on that wherever he would land. And let's say it's Cleveland. Who isn't going to be asking that question from within the opening minutes of an introductory press conference? Now, Does he know how to address that and handle it? Probably, but it's different when you're the assistant who only speaks periodically, if at all, in New England, to the head coach, to the voice, to the face of a team. I think he is, he's perhaps learned a lot of what not to do from the experience in Denver and here. But this being the second go around for him, wherever it lands, it has got to be right, which tells me, too, it won't be the easiest interview for him. He's going to have probably more questions for the Haslams than they have for him. I guarantee you, because he's going to want to build as secure a situation as he possibly can to maximize the control. And then the question becomes, how much do they want to give him? Because he's the candidate that can ask for more than other candidates. And then you make a value judgment as ownership as to how much are you turning over to this particular guy. And clearly, the Haslams have had to feel burned by decision-making that they've done, by decisions that maybe were made for them at the outset. It's been really a kind of an interesting run for them as owners. And I think this hiring go-around is one that, after a one-and-done, how crucial it is to get it right. You need to. What is the one thing that is going to stick with them? I know the Pagulas, who own the Bills, when they were before they even sat down with Sean McDermott the first time around, the thing Terry Pagula hung on to was McDermott's background as a championship high school wrestler, as a great wrestler, and he said it's the makeup of that person who's part of a sport that, for the most part, has a lonely existence, doesn't attract a lot of crowd, and you're in a place where you want to be good because you want to be good. It's not because you get a whole lot of people screaming and yelling your name and supporting you, and the training and the discipline required. So whoever the candidate is that he latches on, that the Haslams latch on to there, they need to dial up that quality, that thing that transcends being a football coach.
It certainly does. And kind of speaking with the same theme, you asked about McDaniels, a guy that you know is an institution and probably the greatest quarterback, although an argument can be made for Joe Montana. Tom Brady, do you think this is the end of Tom Brady in New England? And or is he going to ride off into the sunset? Belichick, I mean, the ramifications for this could be staggering if McDaniels leaves and Brady leaves, et cetera, with the Patriots. Vic, you talk to a lot of people around the league. What are you hearing on this front?
Yeah, it really feels like the end is here once and for all, and it's based on multiple conversations, but one that really stuck with me on Saturday morning doing my show on Sirius XM NFL Radio. Tom Curran, you know him well from Boston Sports, from NBC Sports Boston, and Tom Curran, who I consider as much an expert on the Patriots as there is walking the earth. I said to him, if this day or this night ends with this being a Patriot loss, how ready are you for the end of Brady? He says, fully prepared. He said, this guy, go down the list, no contract, with the non-franchise tag, selling the house in New England, detached, this is the one that really got me, detached way that he has carried himself, a sense of detachment with the organization. And he said it's not just recent. This has pretty much been the whole year of his mode that he's read from him, body language, words, whatever. And he left, of course, that door as wide open as could be in his post-game press conference. So I see a guy physically that does not look like there's much more to give. I also see a guy who will be in 2020 season, a 43-year-old, mostly pocket quarterback, and I'm not so sure that's the guy Bill Belichick wants to coach anymore. I think you look around the league and look at the dynamic players who are owning that position. And, I put Josh Allen on that list, but I watched Deshaun Watson do some incredible things on the same day he's being sacked 7 times and harassed all day and still being able to athletically pull out what he did to carry his team to win. You need that. I don't know if you need it to that level of drama, but there better be some element of that. We see what Lamar Jackson does. We see what Patrick Mahomes does. We see what we think Kyler Murray can do for a long time. And Josh Allen, he makes a lot of those same plays that Watson made. He made a 42-yard run on the same drive when he caught a touchdown pass. Those are the extra, special things.
Yeah.
And we've seen some incredible work by Tom Brady. I'm not diminishing that, but I don't know. In fact, I'm pretty certain at 43 and at this stage, you're not seeing that guy. And if you're Bill Belichick and you still want to coach in this league, you want more of that. So I do see it coming to an end there. The only other caveat with McDaniels is this. If it should turn out that it's Belichick who decides he walks away, and that day is going to come, is McDaniels staying put to eventually take that? I don't know.
Yeah, fascinating.
It is.
Very little you don't know, sir. Always great to talk to you.
The tortoise.
Vic, always great talking to you, buddy.
My pleasure. Always love it with you guys. Again, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
I'm sure we'll do this down the line, guys.
Certainly at the Combine, at the very least, sir.
Yes.
Very good stuff. Rumpke Waste and Recycling, family owned and operated since 1932. They've been in business 87 years, keeping neighborhoods clean and green. Their customers, employees, and communities are all part of the family. Visit rumpke.com to learn more. Also, are you on the injured list? You can help with a new game plan. Call 1-800-ELK Ohio for a free injury case review. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. You have your hand up, sir.
Yes, the Rams have informed defensive coordinator Wade Phillips that he will not be retained. A person with knowledge of the situation has told Gary Klein of the L.A. Times.
Well, that seems, I don't know that was their problem.
No, it seems surprising to me.
Yeah, that does seem a little surprising to me that they would move off. Although, Wade's getting up there a little bit, but, it seems like the defense play. Is he really? Yeah. I guess he has to be. Yeah, he's been around forever.
The son of Bum.
Yeah, the son of Bum. Love Bum. Love those hats. Absolutely fantastic. All right, coming up top of the hour, more perspective from the national side. Dan Graziano, our good buddy from ESPN, will join us on the head coaching hot seat. Who's up, who's not, who's going to get what job. We'll get his perspective on what's happening here in Berea as well. Much more to come. Final hour, CBD, 850, ESPN Cleveland.